Good morning, students. Today we will be looking into another important concept of this chapter, sexual reproduction in flowering plants, which is artificial hybridization. Okay, artificial hybridization is one of the major approaches in crop improvement program. Okay, so what is crop improvement program? If we have to improve the quality of any agricultural crop, then we use this technology called as artificial hybridization. Not only agricultural crops, any other plants, if we have to improve the quality of those plants, then we use this technology called as artificial hybridization. You will understand it better when I explain the whole concept. Okay. Now, what is the technique used in artificial hybridization, or what exactly artificial hybridization is? Okay, artificial hybridization means when desired pollen grains are used for pollination and fertilization. When desired pollen grains are used for pollination and fertilization process, we call this technique as artificial hybridization. Okay, if I have to explain it very simply, in a simple way, then take an example of a bisexual flower. In a bisexual flower, you will have both stamens and pistil together in a flower. Okay, when the anther of the stamen matures, it releases the pollen grains. Those pollen grains will come and deposit on the stigma of the pistil of the same flower. Then the pollination and fertilization process is carried out as explained in the previous parts. Okay, now if you do not want the pollen grains to come from the same flower and get deposited on the stigma, okay, of the particular flower, then what you do is you avoid these pollen grains, or you stop these pollen grains from coming from the same flower and getting deposited on the stigma, wherein you choose pollen grains from some other particular flower and get the pollen grains from there and deposit it on the stigma of the required flower, okay, or the flower of your interest. Okay, I hope you have understood the concept. We will look into the techniques used in artificial hybridization so that you will understand it better. Okay, in order to explain it better, I need to take an example of two plants. Okay, let's consider any plant, plant 1 and plant 2. Okay, we are taking two examples here. One, we are taking plant 1, another plant 2. Okay, both belonging to the same species. If you want, you can take an example of hibiscus. Okay, hibiscus plant 1 and hibiscus plant 2. Okay, imagine this plant is producing red colored flower, whereas this plant is producing white colored flower. Okay, this is just an example. You can just imagine. Okay, now this plant 1 is producing red color flower, whereas this plant 2 is producing white color flower. Now, what is happening is, red color flower is very vibrant in color. It is very attractive in color, whereas the flower sizes are very small in this case. Whereas white color flowers, they are little dull when compared to the red flowers, but they are very larger in size. The flower size is very large. Now you want to bring these two characters in one particular flower. That means the flower should be red in color, also it should be larger in size. Okay, so you need a red color flower, and you have to take a property from this white color flower where it is very big, larger in size. You need a red larger flower. Okay, so now what we do is we carry out this process called as artificial hybridization. Okay, now if you read the explanation, you will be better able to understand what is the actual technique involved here. If you read it, when desired pollen grains are used for pollination and fertilization. So in this case, what you do is you take plant 1 and plant 2, you bring the pollen grains from this plant. Even though hibiscus is a bisexual flower, it has both pistil and stamen in it. What you do is you collect the pollen grains from this plant 2, and those pollen grains you manually deposit it on the stigma of plant 1. In this case, ultimately when you get the seed in the next generation, in that particular plant, it is going to produce red colored, larger sized hibiscus flower. Instead of red small flower or white larger flower, you will be getting the combination of these two, where you will get a red color larger flower. Okay, this technology is called as crop improvement program. You had two crops here, you had two plants here, but you are improving the quality of that particular crop. That is the reason it is considered as major approach in crop improvement program. Okay, so here what is the technique involved? You collect the pollen grains. The desired pollen grains means the pollen grains of your interest. Okay, you artificially get the pollen grains from one flower, transfer it to the stigma of another flower, so that in the future generation you get your desired characters, desired character. Okay, so this is the technology. Now let me explain the methods involved in this particular artificial hybridization technique. In artificial hybridization, there are two major techniques involved. Okay, this question will be asked for your 2 marks. Okay, where they will be asking you the techniques involved in artificial hybridization. Okay, the first technique involved in this artificial hybridization is emasculation. Okay, emasculation is nothing but removing the anthers, removing the whole stamen from a bisexual flower before the anthers dehisce or break open and release the pollen grains. Okay, now let's again take an example of hibiscus. Hibiscus plant 1 and hibiscus plant 2. Okay. Now let us take the same example of hibiscus in order to explain the process of emasculation. Now we have a red color hibiscus flower. Okay, I don't have a red color chalk, that is the reason I have used orange color chalk here. Okay, now we have a red color hibiscus flower and this is the white color hibiscus flower. Okay, now what we want in the future is a red color larger hibiscus flower. So what I have to do here is I need to get the pollen grains. Okay, both are bisexual flower. So both are bisexual flower. Here what I need to do now is, as per the technique, I need to bring the pollen grains from this particular flower, and these pollen grains should be deposited on the stigma or the pistil of this particular flower, so that in the future we will get red color larger flowers. Okay. However, here there is a problem involved. Okay, now since hibiscus is a bisexual flower, here is your stigma. Okay, this is your stigma and this is your stamen. Okay, other parts you are already aware of. This is the style and this is the ovary. We are not considering, we are not worrying more about the style and ovary. We are all that we are concerned here is stigma and stamen. Stamen also we are concerned about anther. Okay, so this tip portion of the stamen is nothing but anther. Inside the anther you have pollen grains. Okay, now as I said, there is a problem involved here. Since hibiscus is a bisexual flower, here you have the stigma, here you have anthers. Okay, inside the anthers, pollen grains will be produced. Okay, inside the anther, imagine pollen grains are already produced. Okay, I am taking an example of a single anther. Okay, now your purpose or what you want to do is you want to collect the pollen grains from this particular plant and dust it on this flower. But before you do it, what if the pollen grains that are present inside this anther comes and get deposited on the stigma and the pollination has already happened? Okay, so in order to avoid that, we can easily think of what can be done in this particular scenario. Okay, the only thing that could be done here is, in order to avoid cross pollination or the pollen grains coming from some other plant or some other flower, what you have to do is you have to cut this stamen, or if to be specific, you can also cut only the anther part from this particular flower. Okay, when the anthers are removed or the stamens are removed from the bisexual flower, this procedure is called as emasculation. Okay, so what is emasculation? Removal of stamen or anther. You can either remove the whole stamen. Okay, if the flower is larger, you can easily remove the whole stamen with the help of a scissor or a forceps. Okay, removal of stamen from a bisexual flower. Okay, when you are removing the stamens or anther from a bisexual flower, now you don't have to worry about self-pollination happening. Okay, you don't have to worry that the pollen grains will come from this anther and sit on the stigma, because there are no anthers, there are no pollen grains, because you have already removed the anthers. This process of removal of stamen from a bisexual flower is known as emasculation. Okay, now how do we do it? If the flower is little larger, we can cut the anther with the help of scissor or a forceps. Okay, example is hibiscus itself. Hibiscus, the stamens are clearly visible, so that you can just pluck it off with the help of forceps. However, if the flower is very tiny and the stamen is very tiny, you have to use something called as suction pumps. Okay, which is done in agriculture industry or in biotechnological or artificial hybridization techniques very commonly. Okay, now here we have removed the anthers, and now there is no anther. Now what you have to do is, the second step is bagging. Bagging is nothing but, when you have cut off the anther, the problem of self-pollination is solved. That the pollen grains from the same flower will not come and deposit on the stigma. There is no threat. However, if the flower is open or it is exposed, there is a chance that pollen grains might come from some other flower other than your flower of interest with the help of different agents of pollination. It could be wind, or it could be any animals like insects, flies, moths, wasps, beetles. Okay, any pollinating agent can bring the pollination from other flowers, and it can deposit those pollen grains on the stigma. Then your experiment will go for a toss. Okay, your experiment will not be successful. Artificial hybridization will not be successful. So in order to avoid that, you need to take a bag and cover your stigma. Okay, you need to take a bag and cover the stigma so that any other undesired pollination does not take place. Okay, so this bag is generally made up of butter paper. Okay, otherwise if we are doing these experiments at home, we can use simple plastic covers. Okay, we have to make sure that it is, we give enough air inside the plastic cover so that there is no lack of oxygen here. Okay, so we cover the stigma with the help of butter paper. Okay, with the help of a bag usually made up of butter paper, so that other pollen grains will not come and deposit on the stigma, the undesired pollen grains. Okay, so what is bagging? Covering of stigma with a bag. Okay. Now till when you are going to cover the stigma? Okay, the answer is you will cover the stigma till this anther becomes mature and it dehisces to release the pollen grains outside it. Okay, now there are pollen grains produced inside the anther. Now the anther has dehisced, pollen grains are released out, and you will find pollen grains, yellow color. Generally we find yellow color pollen grains surrounding to the anther of hibiscus. What we do is we collect the pollen grains. It could be with the help of a brush. Okay, we collect these pollen grains from this anther. Okay, and we bring those pollen grains and we dust those pollen grains on the stigma of this particular flower by removing the bag. Okay, we will remove the bag. Then what we will do is we will dust the pollen grains brought from this flower on the stigma of this particular flower. Okay, now when we dust it, what happens? Few pollen grains, if the stigma finds it compatible, then the pollen grains are received by the stigma. Pollen grains, as we all know, pollen grains with the help of this layer called as enzyme produce the pollen tube, and the male gametes which are present in the generative cell of the pollen grain will enter the stigma and it passes through the style. It reaches the ovary. In the ovary it goes to the ovule. Okay, inside the ovule you will find embryo sac. In the embryo sac we will find egg. The male gamete will go and fuse with that egg and it produces zygote, as we have studied in the previous classes. Okay, so these are the technologies involved in artificial hybridization. The two important ones are emasculation and bagging. Okay, removal of stamens from a bisexual flower is called as emasculation. Covering the stigma with a bag, which is generally made up of butter paper, is known as bagging. Okay, we also have to make sure once we dust the pollen grains taken from the plant 2 on the stigma, again we are going to cover this stigma with the help of butter paper, so that again there is no chance of cross pollination. Okay, once the pollination is done, fertilization is done, the seed is formed. Okay, plant 1, we allow the seed to dry. Okay, and after the fruit is dried, we remove the seeds and we sow it, and when we get a new plant, we might get the result as red colored larger flower when compared to this red small and white larger flowers. Okay, so this is the ultimate technique involved in artificial hybridization. Hope this is clear to you. If you have any queries, you can always reach out to me. In the next part, we will be studying about post-fertilization events. Okay. Now, in pre-fertilization, we have studied how microsporogenesis happens, how megasporogenesis happens. We have studied the structure of TS of anther, pollen grains, okay, and also we have studied the structure of ovule, ovary, okay. Then in the fertilization, we have already studied how a fertilization takes place in a bisexual in a flowering plant. Okay, again I would like to brief. Okay, so this is your pistil. Okay, inside the pistil you have stigma, style and ovary. Inside the ovary you will find ovules. Okay, inside the ovule you will find a structure known as embryo sac developed from nucellar cells. Okay, so this is the embryo sac. Okay, how fertilization takes place? When the pollen grain deposits on the stigma, pollen grain produces a tube called as pollen tube. The pollen tube enters the ovule in the micropylar region. The two male gametes coming out of the pollen grain almost reaches the embryo sac. One male gamete goes and fuses with the egg. Okay, the other male gamete goes and fuses with the central cell polar nuclei. Okay. After this is called as when one male gamete fuses with the polar nuclei, it is called as triple fusion. When the other male gamete fuses with the egg, it is called as syngamy. Both together called as syngamy and triple fusion is together as together it is called as double fertilization. Okay. Now we will look into the fourth post-fertilization event. That means after this fertilization, what are the changes taking place inside the ovary? For that, I have enlarged the structure of embryo sac here. Okay, this is this embryo sac enlarged here. I have not drawn ovary and the structure of ovule here. Okay. In the previous class we have studied there are two male gametes coming and there are two synergids which have finger-like projections on their cell wall, okay, which are called as filiform apparatus. When the male gametes comes, the male gametes enter the embryo sac through any one of the synergids, okay, and who guides this male gametes to enter the embryo sac? It is the filiform apparatus, these finger-like projections, which are known as filiform apparatus, which actually guides the male gametes to enter the embryo sac. Now, the male gamete has entered, one male gamete has fused with the egg, another male gamete has fused with the polar nuclei which is present in the central cell. Okay, after this, we get post-fertilization embryo sac. Okay, here you can see the two synergids are gone, they are degenerated. Now ultimately what we have is the fusion product of male and female gamete, which is a zygote. Okay, this was a female gamete. When the male gamete fused with the female gamete, this structure is converted into zygote and the two synergids are gone. Okay, hope this is very clear to you. I don't need any confusion here. The two synergids are degenerated. This egg itself, zygote itself is a fertilized egg. The male gamete comes and fertilizes the female gamete. Ultimately, this is as a result of this fusion, zygote is formed. Okay, and this is the central cell. Central cell has one more male gamete coming and fusing with it. So central cell is getting converted into primary endosperm cell. Okay, you can clearly see here the egg which was present in the micropylar end. This egg is getting converted into zygote after the fertilization. The central cell which had 2 nuclei now has 3 nuclei, and the central cell is getting converted into primary endosperm cell. Okay, antipodals remains the same. They are nutritive in function, that means they give nutrition to the developing embryo and the endosperm, and after that antipodals degenerate. Okay, so after fertilization you will be able to see the embryo sac this way. Okay, so you will have a zygote here, you will have primary endosperm cell here, and you will have antipodals. We are not talking much about antipodals because anyways they are going to degenerate after providing nutrition, because they are very rich in proteins and fats. Okay. Now fertilization is done, everything is done. Now what is going to happen in the ovary? What are the changes that are going to take place in the ovary? Concentrate and listen. After the fertilization is completed, your whole ovary, that is the bottom broad region of your pistil, this ovary, the whole ovary is getting converted into the fruit. Okay, in any plant, that the fruit that we consume has come as a result of, they have originated from this ovary. Okay, you clearly see this ovary, the broad structure at the bottom of the pistil. This ovary develops into fruit. Okay, then this ovule, okay, this ovule develops into seed. Ovules develop into seeds in a plant. Okay, then we talk about zygote. Zygote develops into embryo. When we cut open a seed, when we cut open a fruit which is ovary, we find seed which is nothing but ovules. When we open the seed, which is nothing but ovules, when we open the seed, inside we will find embryo. Okay, so this embryo is nothing but a sporophytic plant, we can say. That means it is multicellular. Embryo is multicellular. In the future it is going to give rise to a new plant. Okay, this is found inside a seed. Seeds are found inside a fruit. Okay, that is the reason, since embryo is found inside the seed, when we sow the seed in a land, it germinates and gives rise to a new plant. Okay. Then what happens to primary endosperm cell? The name itself indicates primary endosperm cell. That means this is the cell which is going to give rise to endosperm. What is endosperm? I will explain in detail. Okay, by this time we should be able to understand that post-fertilization events are ovary giving rise to fruit, ovule giving rise to seed, zygote giving rise to embryo, primary endosperm cell giving rise to endosperm. Okay, so these are the post-fertilization events where ovary will develop into fruit, ovule develops into seed, zygote will develop into embryo, and the primary endosperm cell, which is at the center of the cell, it is converted into endosperm. Let's begin with endosperm. What is endosperm and how is it produced? We need to know that endosperm is a kind of nutritive tissue which provides nutrition to developing embryo. Okay, so this endosperm is nothing but it's a nutritive tissue. That means group of cells which are rich in nutrition. Okay, otherwise, in other words, we can say they are group of cells which are rich in reserve food materials. Okay, so that is the reason they provide nutrition to the developing embryo. Look into the structure of an embryo sac after fertilization. This primary endosperm cell, what happens is this primary endosperm cell undergoes multiple division, mitotic division. Okay, the primary endosperm cell undergoes multiple mitotic division in order to produce endosperm. Okay, endosperm is a nutritive tissue. Now, as we all know, inside the primary endosperm cell, we have this nucleus known as primary endosperm nucleus, PEN. Okay, primary endosperm nucleus, which is triploid in number. It is triploid in number because it is formed as a result of fusion of two polar nuclei and one nuclei from the male gamete. Okay, it is a result of three nuclei here. That means that is the reason we call them as triploid tissue, and this nuclei, which is triploid in nature, is known as primary endosperm nucleus. This primary endosperm cell, let me take this out. Primary endosperm nucleus, primary endosperm cell. Okay, as I already told you, they undergo multiple mitotic divisions. Okay, when I say multiple mitotic divisions, what happens here is majorly it is nuclear divisions. Okay, while forming the during the formation of embryo sac topic itself, I have mentioned that when a cell is dividing, obviously the nucleus which is present at the center of the cell is going to divide, which is known as karyokinesis. After the nuclear division is over, cytokinesis is going to happen, which is the division of the cell into two. Okay, if the cytokinesis is not following karyokinesis, then inside one single cell you will find multiple nucleus, whereas there is no cell wall formation and multiple cells are not formed. However, one cell is multinucleated. So if that condition is going to happen inside this primary endosperm nucleus, imagine primary endosperm is undergoing mitotic division, but only the nucleus, primary endosperm nucleus, is dividing. Okay, where there is no cell wall formation. Now you can find like this. Okay, there are multiple nucleus inside this primary endosperm cell. Now we call them as nuclear endosperm or free nuclear endosperm. Okay, primary endosperm cell, which was present here in the center of the embryo sac, they undergo multiple nuclear division, where their primary endosperm nucleus undergoes mitotic division, multiple mitotic division, and form many nucleus inside one cell. At this condition, we call this primary endosperm cell no more as primary endosperm cell. It will be considered as free nuclear endosperm. Primary endosperm cell has formed the endosperm tissue. Okay, it has formed the endosperm where there is free nucleus. Okay, inside the endosperm. So that condition is known as free nuclear endosperm. Example for this is the tender coconut water that we drink. That water is an example for free nuclear endosperm. Okay. Now imagine a case where all the free nucleus present inside the cell is developing a cell wall. They develop their own cell wall, that means cytokinesis is happening. And here there are few nucleus which still have not developed a cell wall. Now you can imagine, if you take an example of tender coconut, the center part where there is no cell wall formation, there is only free nucleus is remaining. This part is the watery part that we drink in a tender coconut, and this surrounding the nucleus which have developed the cell wall, they are the actual white kernel that we use or that we eat in a tender coconut. Okay, hope you are able to understand. The watery part that we drink is a free nuclear endosperm. If this nucleus have developed a cell wall, they will develop into, now this structure, this hard structure can be called as cellular endosperm. Okay, since the endosperm have developed cell wall, they can be now called as cellular endosperm. So endosperm can be of two types here. Free nuclear endosperm, that is when the primary endosperm cell undergoes mitotic division, only the nucleus inside it is dividing. There is no cell wall formation. At this particular time, we will find multi-nucleated structure. This structure can be called as free nuclear endosperm. However, if the free nucleus are developing cell wall against it, then that structure can be called as cellular endosperm. Okay, what is the function of endosperm? In the beginning of the class itself I explained. They are the nutritive tissue which provides nutrition to the developing embryo. If I have to explain it here, now there is no primary endosperm cell and primary endosperm nucleus because they have already developed into endosperm. Now there are no antipodals. Now this can be called as endosperm tissue. Okay, from a primary endosperm cell, endosperm tissue are formed. They are triploid in nature because they have because of the triple fusion. Okay, now they are endosperm tissue. What is their function? The function is to give nutrition to the developing embryo. Okay, you know that the zygote itself, they get converted into embryo. When the embryo is forming, inside this embryo sac, the endosperm tissue will give nutrition to the embryo. Okay, so that the embryo can develop, and they can develop in a very good manner. Okay, so this is the actual concept of endosperm and why endosperm is required. Okay, endosperm will be generally fully utilized by the developing embryo, or in few seeds endosperm will be seen even after the embryo is fully developed. Okay, example is coconut, whereas in few seeds what happens is endosperm is completely utilized by the developing embryo during the seed formation. Example here we can say, we can take is beans, peas and groundnuts. Okay, so all these things. So with this we complete this topic called as endosperm. Next topic we will be looking into is zygote develops into a embryo.